The Anycubic Kobra S1 Max is a large 3D printer packed with lots of features. So, is it the best large format 3D printer value? That's what we're going to find out in this video. Hi, I'm Ken of Wrist Innovations, and welcome to today's video where we'll be taking a first look at the new Anycubic Kobra S1 Max 3D printer, so you can make an informed decision on whether this printer is for you. I've organized the video into chapters listed in the description that will allow you to skip around the video depending on what is important to you. I want to thank Anycubic for sending me the S1 Max. Okay, let's get started. I printed parts on the S1 Max using PLA, PETG, ABS, and glass-filled ABS, and I think you're going to be surprised at the results. Once I got the S1 Max set up, I had to print a preloaded design of a benchy in PLA, which turned out pretty nice. Next, I printed this preloaded design of a large filament waste bucket using PLA, and it also turned out nice. Next, I printed this calibration test design by Gabox 3D on printables using PLA. For the S1 Max, the overhang test did successfully print all the way to 80 degrees. The various cylinder diameters measured 9.67 millimeters, 7.68 millimeters, 5.71 millimeters, and 3.76 millimeters versus design diameters of 10 millimeters, 8 millimeters, 6 millimeters, and 4 millimeters respectively. The various rectangle lengths measured 10.12 millimeters, 20.07 millimeters, and 30.32 millimeters for design lengths of 10 millimeters, 20 millimeters, and 30 millimeters respectively. Bridging overall looked good, and there were only a few stringers on the part. Next, I printed a spiral vase design using PETG that was uploaded to printables by Max41349. However, the original design is by Big Bad Bison on Thingiverse.com. The S1 Max part turned out beautiful. I really couldn't find any defects on this part. We interrupt this program with a special report. Ken has his wedding anniversary coming up and he wants to give his wife a special gift. So we thought, what about designing and making a special jewelry box for her? He could design his jewelry box, but if he doesn't have a 3D printer, he could contact Justway, a company that he could send his design to and have them 3D print the parts for him. All he has to do is go on to Justway's website, upload his STL file, and they would make the parts and ship them right to his door. Then, after Ken assembles his jewelry box, he could give the gift to his lovely wife, and she would be so happy. If Ken needs other services in the future, such as CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, and injection molding, Justway could help him with that as well. Now, back to your regularly scheduled program. Okay, now let's step up our game with a more challenging material, ABS. ABS can be a challenge because it tends to easily warp when printing because it really needs a warm environment. I decided to print this vice grips tool designed by 3dprintedhardware.com. I did use a brim and support because there are a lot of overhangs and some of the parts did not have much contact with the build plate. The nice thing about the S1 Max is the actively heated chamber, which I turned on for this part. I was really happy with the results from the S1 Max because the vice grips turned out beautiful. The vice grips did not have any warping and it works really well. Now, let's try glass-filled ABS. I decided to print this channel lock pliers tool designed by 3dprintedhardware.com. I also used a brim because the parts were quite long and skinny. Just like with the ABS, for the glass-filled ABS, I turned on the actively heated chamber. I was also really happy with the results from the S1 Max because the channel lock pliers turned out great. The channel lock pliers do not have any warping and it works really well. Even though I'm not a big fan of multicolor printing due to the amount of wasted filament and how slow the prints take, since the Max has a multi-filament capability, I had to try a multicolor print. I printed this articulated Diphothosaurus flexible dino by the Dragon's Den on MakerWorld in 4 colors of PLA. Here's where I ran into a few problems. The print was running fine for several hours, but then I got an error notification of an abnormal extrusion. I resumed the printing and the part continued printing. Then, a while later, I went to check on the printer and it was stopped without any warning messages. I don't know if I had a power glitch or something else, but since there were no error messages, the only thing I thought to do was to shut down the printer and start the print all over again. I ran the part overnight, and when I checked the printer in the morning, I found that the print had stopped again, but this time it was due to a clogged waste chute. When I investigated this further, I found that it was my fault, that the waste bucket was slightly away from the printer, which allowed filament waste to accumulate on the lip of the bucket and formed a blockage that eventually caused the waste chute to become filled with filament waste. I even had to use a heated knife to cut away the fused filament from the wiper mechanism. After that, I taped the waste bucket to the printer so I wouldn't have that problem again. I started the print over for the third time, and then after several hours the workpiece headpieces broke free from the build plate, so I stopped the print again. In all fairness to the printer, the workpiece had a small contact area on the build plate, so I applied a coating of Vision Minor nanopolymer adhesive to the build plate, and I added Mousier's brim to the workpiece. I started the print over for the fourth time, and it ran for a while before I began to get the same abnormal extrusion error message, and I noticed it was only for position number 2 in the Ace 2 Pro. I traced the line to the 4-in-1 hub, and that is where it seemed like the filament was getting stuck in the hub, which caused the error message. I continued to monitor the printer until the white filament was done with the print, and then I let the printer continue to run overnight without any problems. Because of all the delays with the error messages of the white filament, the print took approximately 40 hours to make. The print finally did turn out well, and all the joints easily moved. After the print was done, I took apart the 4-in-1 hub, but I didn't see anything unusual that would cause the one filament to get stuck in the hub. I will also try a different spool of filament to see if that was contributing to the problem. I am your father. Oops, wrong helmet. So, to test the size of the S1 Max, I decided to 3D print my first one-piece cosplay helmet. I found this Mandalorian helmet remixed by Rosstown RD on MakerWorld. I decided to scale the helmet to 105% so my big head could fit in, and it took approximately 28 hours to print the helmet. I was really happy with the results of this helmet. You might notice a slight color variation here on the helmet, and that was due to me running out of the Anycubic filament and using Bamboo Lab filament for the rest of the helmet. So, to summarize the parts quality section of this video, based on my initial experience with the Anycubic Kobra S1 Max, it produces high quality parts, including materials such as glass-filled ABS. I did have some printing issues with my multicolor print, which in one case was due to my oversight and not having the filament waste bucket directly next to the printer. In another case, the workpiece had a very small contact with the build plate, so I corrected that with the polymer adhesive applied to the build plate and adding Mousier brims to the part. There were a couple other issues, including the one case that the printer stopped mid-print without any error messages, and in another case, for some reason, spool number 2 filament was getting stuck in the 4-in-1 hub, which I have not figured out exactly why yet. Now, let's dive into the main features of the S1 Max. The S1 Max is a large 3D printer with overall printer dimensions of 503 mm wide by 483 mm deep by 584 mm high, not counting the Ace 2 Pro on top. The S1 Max is on the heavy side at 30 kilograms or 66 pounds. I did use my hydraulic cart from Harbor Freight to help me with getting the S1 Max from the floor up to my workbench height. The S1 Max has a large print volume of 350 millimeters cubed, which is now the second largest printer I own. Here's a comparison between the build plates of a 256 by 256 millimeters and the S1 Max, and you can see visually there is a big difference. The S1 Max is a fully enclosed Core XY printer with a rigid internal frame and a glass top and door. The S1 Max has a maximum hot-end temperature of 350 degrees C, which is great for higher temperature engineering materials. The S1 Max has a quick change nozzle and Anycubic offers the 0.4mm hardened steel nozzle as standard. However, a 0.25mm, 0.6mm, and 0.8mm nozzles are available. It would be helpful if Anycubic would identify the nozzle diameter on the actual nozzles. Maybe this will be the case with the production parts. Also, the tool head cover is easily removed and there are no fan cables to disconnect, so that's nice. The S1 Max has a maximum build plate temperature of 120 degrees C, maximum speed of 600 millimeters per second, and a maximum acceleration of 20,000 millimeters per second squared. It has a filament runout sensor, nozzle wipe feature, and a chamber fan with a carbon filter. However, the bag of carbon does not fully fit into the opening, which will allow air to bypass the carbon, and there isn't a HEPA filter. So I really don't think this setup is effective in controlling small particles and VOCs. Also, the whole fan assembly doesn't seem to be mounted securely in the printer. The S1 Max is the first fully enclosed printer that I've seen that the filament waste chute is on the left side of the printer versus the back. This does make it easier to get to the waste bucket. The S1 Max has a multicolor filament multi-material capability when using the ACE2 Pro unit, and it can take advantage of the Anycubic RFID tags in the Anycubic filament spools that allow the ACE2 Pro to recognize the color and amount of specific materials on each spool. Each ACE2 Pro unit can hold up to 4 spools of filament, and you can connect as many as 4 ACE2 Pro units to the printer for a maximum of 16 colors. An added feature of the ACE2 Pro is that it has a heater that allows you to dry your filaments with or without the printer printing parts, with a maximum temperature of 65 degrees C. Also, Anycubic sent me one of their filaments without the spool, and I tried to see if it would fit on the Bamboo Lab spool, and it fit perfectly. The S1 Max comes with a dual-side textured PEI build plate, and I've noticed that typically the Anycubic build plates do not have a strong adhesion, so normally I apply a coating of Vision Miner's nanopolymer, which I did with the S1 Max as well. It has 2 auxiliary parts cooling fans, one on the left and one on the right side, which will really help with the large print area. The S1 Max works with the Anycubic slicer, which is a fork of Orca slicer, and their phone app. The S1 Max has auto bed leveling, Z-axis offset, power loss recovery, and an internal LED light. The S1 Max can print wirelessly using their slicer, and it also has an Ethernet port. You can print the following filaments on the S1 Max: PLA, PETG, TPU, ABS, ASA, PC, and carbon-filled or glass-filled materials. The S1 Max has a large 4.3-inch color touchscreen to communicate with the printer. The S1 Max has a low frame rate 720p resolution camera that also provides spaghetti detection. You can transfer files using a USB drive. The S1 Max is relatively quiet. The ACE2 Pro is very quiet, and the S1 Max is relatively quiet due to the noise cancellation feature. It's quite easy to set up the S1 Max. One challenge is to get the S1 Max on box and onto your workbench due to the size and weight of the printer. You may want to get a friend to help you with this, or in my case, I own a hydraulic table, so I could do it myself. Anycubic have a nice design of the outer box because all you need to do is pull these tabs around the bottom of the box and then slide the box right off the printer. Once you remove the S1 Max from the box, it's just a matter of removing the various foam packaging from the printer. First, remove the accessory box and foam from the printer. Next, open the front door and cut the 2 cable ties that are holding the ACE2 Pro and remove the ACE2 Pro. Remove the 4 screws from the ACE2 Pro packaging supports and remove them from the printer. Remove the 3 screws that are holding the heated bed to the frame. Cut the cable tie that is securing the tool head. If you don't have the ACE2 Pro, you can install the external filament holder bracket and external filament holder. If you have the ACE2 Pro, you can skip this step. Install the carbon filter bag. To install the ACE2 Pro, place it on top of the printer. Connect the 4-pin cable end into the printer and the 6-pin cable end into the ACE2 Pro. Attach the filament hub to the back of the printer and insert the cable connector into the printer. Connect the Teflon tubing from the top of the printer into the filament hub. Attach 4 Teflon tubing pieces, each end to the filament hub and the other end to the ACE2 Pro. Plug the electrical cords into the Ace 2 Pro and to the printer and connect to your power source. Turn on the power to both the Ace 2 Pro and the printer and follow the screen prompts by choosing a language, graphic region, and set up your Wi-Fi. You can also bind the printer to the Anycubic mobile app at this time. Next, the printer will perform a self-check and calibration by performing a PID calibration, vibration compensation, auto bed leveling, and active noise cancellation. Next, you can load filament into the Ace 2 Pro. If you're using the Anycubic filament that has the RFID tags, the Ace 2 Pro will automatically recognize the material, color, and amount of filament on the spool. I also loaded the latest version of Anycubic Slicer software on my computer. Finally, I was ready to print my first part. Now let's talk about the cost of the printer. At the making of this video, April 2026, the Anycubic S1 Max with the Ace 2 Pro is currently on sale for $849, normally $1,099. As a comparison, the price of the Bambu Lab H2S with the AMS2 Pro is $1,499. So the Anycubic S1 Max combo is $650 less than the Bambu Lab H2S combo. Let's go to my final summary and recommendation. Overall, I'm impressed with the quality of the prints I made on the Anycubic Kobra S1 Max, including prints made from ABS. I was especially happy with how the PLA Cosplay full-size helmet turned out, and I consider the print quality to be comparable to the quality from my Bambu Lab printers. As I mentioned earlier, I did have some quirky things happen when I was printing the 4-color print, which I mainly did resolve, but I will need to do some more testing to determine why one of the filaments was occasionally getting stuck in the filament hub. The S1 Max is a large format printer with a 350mm3 print volume. The S1 Max is heavy at 30 kilograms or 66 pounds, so you may want to get help to move it around. The S1 Max has a lot of features for the price, including an actively heated chamber, filament drying in the Ace 2 Pro, 350 degrees C hot end, and a hardened steel nozzle that are perfect for high temperature engineering materials. The S1 Max could use an improved filtration system, including a HEPA filter, but at a sale price of $849, the S1 Max is $650 cheaper than the Bambu Lab H2S, and the S1 Max has a larger print volume than the H2S. So the S1 Max is worth considering if you are planning to buy a large format printer in the near future, especially if you have budget constraints. Bambu Lab has been at the top of the 3D printer market with their innovative product offering. However, I think that Anycubic offers a more budget-friendly, competitive alternative to Bambu Lab printers. What do you think? Between the Anycubic S1 Max and the Bambu Lab H2S, which would you buy? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you're interested, I have an affiliate link for the S1 Max in the description below. If you'd like to see my video titled New Anycubic Kobra X versus Bambu Lab A1, which is better? That link is here. If you'd like to see my video titled Anycubic Kobra S1 Printer, better value than Bambu Lab P1S? That link is here. Thanks for watching. Bye!